Nobody at Lincoln expected to build this car again. For decades, the Continental name sat quietly in the archive, a memory more than a machine, until a small team of engineers decided the legacy deserved one more chapter. I'm bringing you that chapter today, here on Premium Automotive Reviews, where we look past the marketing language and ask what a car actually means to the people who build it and the people who will eventually own it. And before we go any further, there's one decision buried deep in this car's engineering that Lincoln almost didn't approve. A choice that splits opinion inside the company itself, and we're going to get to exactly what that is. Start with the way it sits. This Continental doesn't lean on nostalgia the way a retro reboot usually does. The proportions are long, the hood stretches with old-world patience, but the surfacing is tight, modern, almost sculpted by wind rather than drawn by hand. The greenhouse sits low against a broad shoulder line, and that shoulder line does something clever. It catches light differently, depending on the angle you're standing at, so the car never looks quite the same twice. The face is where the emotional statement lives. A wide, upright grille signals presence without shouting for attention, flanked by a thin horizontal lighting signature that reads as calm rather than aggressive. There's confidence here, not arrogance. The wheels are pushed to the corners, the stance is planted, and every line down the flank seems to be moving even when the car is standing still. This is a Lincoln that wants to be respected before it's noticed. And that's a very different emotional target than most modern luxury design chases. Open the door and the character of the car changes completely. There's a soft mechanical resistance, a weighted click, then silence. The cabin doesn't greet you with screens first, it greets you with material. Hand-finished leather across the seating surfaces, open-pore wood that still smells faintly of the workshop it came from. Brushed metal accents that are cool under the fingertips rather than cold. The seating position is upright but relaxed, more grand tour than lounge chair, because Lincoln wants you engaged with the road, not isolated from it. The steering wheel is thin-rimmed and deliberately old-fashioned in its diameter, a quiet rebellion against the oversized wheels flooding the segment right now. Ambient lighting rises gently rather than snapping on, and the cabin holds a hush that feels engineered rather than accidental. Layers of acoustic glass and dense door sealing working together so that the outside world simply fades. Sitting here before the engine even starts, you already understand what kind of car this is. It's not trying to impress you. It's trying to earn your trust slowly. The technology inside supports the driver rather than competing with them. Adaptive systems quietly manage lane positioning and following distance on long highway stretches, learning your habits over weeks rather than forcing you to learn theirs. Over-the-air updates mean the car should keep improving long after it leaves the dealership, refining response curves and infotainment behavior in the background. Connectivity is deep but restrained, the kind of integration that disappears into the experience instead of demanding your attention. None of it feels like a gadget showcase. It feels like a car that's paying attention so you don't have to. Now for the part enthusiasts actually came for. Under that long hood sits a twin-turbocharged V8, targeting somewhere in the range of 750 horsepower, paired to a 10-speed automatic tuned for smoothness first and aggression second. This is where the controversial decision lives. Lincoln engineers debated internally whether a Continental Flagship should chase raw output at all, and ultimately chose restraint over spectacle, prioritizing torque delivery and refinement instead of chasing a 1,000-horsepower headline. Some inside the program wanted more. The final call was that a Continental should feel inevitable, not violent. Start it up, and you understand that philosophy immediately. There's a brief mechanical settle, then a low, texture idle that sits in your chest rather than your ears, deep but composed. Roll into the throttle, and the exhaust opens with a controlled growl, layered and metallic at the edges, never raw, never crude. Upshifts land with a soft mechanical thud rather than a bark, engineered for confidence rather than theater. Push toward the upper rev range, and the tone sharpens, tightens, becomes more urgent without ever losing its composure. And then cabin isolation returns almost instantly once you back off. The outside world muted again like a door closing on a room full of noise. The first moments of actual driving tell you everything the spec sheet can't. Steering weight builds naturally as speed increases. communicative without being nervous. The kind of feel that rewards a relaxed grip rather than a tense one. Throttle response is immediate, but never jumpy. Torque arriving in a smooth wave that pins you gently rather than snapping your head back. Brake feedback is progressive, confident, exactly where your foot expects it to be. The suspension rides with a controlled softness over broken pavement, absorbing texture rather than transmitting it. Yet the chassis tightens noticeably the moment you ask more of it through a corner. Body roll checked, weight transfer measured. Long-distance comfort was clearly a design priority here. The seats supporting your back through hours of highway driving, without ever feeling stiff. And there's real usable cargo space behind that long trunk line. Practicality quietly woven into the emotional package rather than sacrificed for it. Pricing is expected to land somewhere in the neighborhood of $130,000 for a fully specified example, which places it firmly among established luxury flagships rather than exotic territory. Is it worth that number? Honestly, yes, but not because of a spreadsheet of features. You're paying for a name that survived cancellation and came back with something to prove, for craftsmanship that was clearly overseen by people who cared, for a driving character that refuses to copy anyone else's formula. That's a harder thing to price than horsepower. This car doesn't really have a direct competitor. It's too composed to be cross-shopped against a German sports sedan, too American in spirit to be mistaken for anything else, and too modern to be dismissed as pure nostalgia. Call it a legacy revival with a genuinely new engineering identity underneath. Something the segment hasn't seen executed this deliberately in years. The person this Continental was built for isn't chasing bragging rights. They're someone who values quiet confidence over noise, who understands that true luxury is measured in composure rather than spectacle, who wants a car that feels like an extension of good judgment rather than a statement of excess. They probably drive it on long coastal highways at golden hour, windows cracked, in no particular hurry, because this car was clearly built with exactly that kind of drive in mind. There's real historical weight riding on this car succeeding. A name that once defined American luxury is asking to be trusted again, and that's not a small thing to witness. Before we get to how this one ends, I want to hear from you. Do you think a flagship like this should chase maximum horsepower to compete on paper? Or is restraint like this the smarter long-term move for a brand rebuilding trust? Genuinely curious where you land on that. Drop it in the comments. And subscribe if you want to be here for whatever Lincoln reveals next. The Continental was never really about speed. It was always about arriving like you meant it.